Everybody, hello and welcome to the stream. I am the company's expert, the company's expert, and welcome to everybody who's here. If you are between jobs, if you are looking for a job right now, I have good news for you, and that is that you are a lot more valuable and a lot more employable than it feels like right now. And we're going to talk about that today. It's going to be one of our themes. Also, the question that we're going to answer today, the job interview question, is why should we hire you? If you get asked that question in a job interview, what do you say? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how that fits into the larger context of what your purpose is in a job interview, and how to pass a job interview, and how to get hired in general. Even if you're not going through job interviews to get hired, you're pursuing some other methods, the basic concepts remain the same. So welcome. Welcome. I see we have 8 people here, so thank you so much for being here. It is a long weekend for, at least in North America. In the United States, they have a long weekend. In Canada, there's a long weekend for 2 different reasons. And I know there's a lot of holidays going on all over the world. It's hard to keep track of everything, but thank you so much for showing up today. And I'm glad to see you here. I am unprepared, I'll be honest. I'm just going to lay my cards on the table. I was a bit rushed this morning and I didn't have a chance to get my stuff together and make some notes and everything. So this is going to be totally off the cuff. So if you have questions, you should see the chat. Hopefully, if you are a subscriber, you can ask questions or make comments. Like I can see a couple here. Hello, somebody is saying. So yes, welcome. And you can ask questions. I will try to keep up with the chat, but if for whatever reason that doesn't work, if you really want me to answer your question, give a super chat and I will make sure that I get to all of those and I answer everything you might ask there fully and completely. Yeah, I'm still using ancient technology, so right behind me it's gotten sunnier, so that means I have to reduce the brightness of my camera. You like how that works? That's right. Only the very latest bleeding edge technology here, as befitting me. So how do you say that? Galotron? Galotron is here. Welcome and hello to Galotron. And from France. Awesome. Daniel, Reaver, Fum. If you're in France too, I'm not sure if you are. But thank you for being here. Okay. So just to start things off, I will talk about that question. I think it's still a little bit bright, isn't it? Might be hard staring at a white background with somebody in a white shirt. So I'm just going to turn that right down. There we go. Perfect. That's awesome. Okay. So why should we hire you? You know, it's funny because the little research I've done shows that people are searching for the answer to that job interview question specifically. And the great thing is that question is very, very popular. And it's one of the best questions you could ever be asked if ever you're in a job interview and they fire questions at you. This is one of the questions you want to be asked, okay? Because this is a good question. They're not trying to trip you up. They're not trying to get you to eliminate yourself by saying the wrong thing. This is your moment to sell yourself. Like I said in a video I did a couple years ago, this is your moment to shine. This is the question you want to be asked because the answer to this question is for you to give all the best reasons why they should hire you. Okay, so this is a very positive question. If they asked you questions like this and not the negativity questions, it would be a really, really pleasant job interview. Hopefully, for most people. Good morning, Christine from Long Island, New York. Oh, in Germany. Awesome. Famous from Germany. Daniel is here. Hello, Daniel. Nima. Vlaiko. Variable North Dakota filter. Greetings from Eastern Europe. Yes, greetings. I just want to say, disclaimer, I'm absolutely terrible with names. I'm going to bastardize everybody's name. I'm going to make you want to never come back if I mention your name. So if I don't mention your name, don't get offended. It's because I'm trying not to insult you by totally mispronouncing your name, a name that you think is totally normal. And how could anyone with half a brain not know how to say it, but I'm here to prove to you that it's possible. Anyway, and Sri Lanka, capital Colombo. At least it used to be. I got to watch what I say because things have changed in the last 30 years. Yes, so why should we hire you? So your purpose in a job interview, what's the purpose of a job interview? The purpose is, if you're dealing with a recruiter especially, okay, the way recruiters think is they've already been given a list of requirements that they need in a candidate, right? Their job is to procure people, to find people that have all of those things. That's their job. Sometimes it can be easy. Sometimes it can be very, very hard to find people that have all these different things and want to work for your company. So when you go to a job interview and you're dealing with a recruiter, recruiters are mainly thinking in terms of a checklist, okay? They have a checklist in their head of everything that's needed for this role. And what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to confirm that you have all of those things, okay? So they can sort of check it off. And if you check all the boxes on that list, then usually it means that you pass the recruiter, okay? Sometimes there are more rounds of job interviews after that where you deal with someone like a hiring manager. Hiring managers don't think the same. They're not recruiters. They are more concerned with, do they like you as a person? Because if you get hired, they will be your boss, so they're going to have to be dealing with you like every day. So they care more about, you might have the requirements, but do I like you? Do we click together? Do we get along? That kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a different thing. But if you're dealing with a recruiter, they're thinking of that checklist, okay? Some of the items on the checklist are going to be the things they put in the job description, right? They said, we're looking for somebody who has this, and this, right? So those are some of the things that they're looking for, okay? So your purpose in the job interview, especially if you're dealing with a recruiter, is to convince them that you have all those things, right? And what better way than being asked this question, why should we hire you? This is an invitation for you to start telling them and showing them how you have all of those things, okay? So without keeping anybody in suspense, a great way to phrase your answer, in my opinion, is to say, if they say, why should we hire you? You say, well, as I understand it, you're looking for somebody who, and then you go down that list of requirements, right? If they say they needed someone with 5 years experience in some role and a certain college degree or something, you say, well, as I understand it, you're looking for somebody who has 5 years experience in this role. I have 6 years experience in that role. Or if you don't quite meet it, you could say I have like 4 years experience, but I have done some other work too that basically means I have over 5 years. So you're reassuring them that you have all those things. You are looking for someone with that degree. I have that degree, right? These are all the reasons you want to work here. It's like you're a perfect fit, right? So, yeah. Oh, we got a lot of people talking. It's pretty much a 30-second elevator sales pitch. Well, it's a sales pitch, but don't limit yourself to 30 seconds. If you could end up talking about this question for a while, that would be a good thing. You want to stay on questions like this. You want to talk about all your good points. A lot of times in a job interview, they will ask you questions about your bad points, right? They'll say, what is your weakness? Why shouldn't I hire you? Why did you leave your last job? How much salary do you need? Things like this that are basically like a pass-fail question where you risk being eliminated by your answer, right? If you had the choice, you would be asked questions like this instead. Tell me why we should hire you. Because then you get to give positives, right? It's not a trap. It's not something you have to dodge or avoid. It's like, here's your moment to give your best case. So yeah, it is a sales pitch. Good morning from Colombia, Bogota, Sri Lanka, Singapore City, I think, right? Is the capital of Singapore. Greetings from Poland. Mixor says greetings from Poland. Poland is Warsaw, right? Warsaw. I know is it Lodge? Do you say it Lodge or is it Lodz or something like that? It's like Lodz or Lodz if you're American. I've always wondered. I've never heard it said. Or no, I've heard it said, but everybody says it different. So, oh, here we go. Here we go with the sarcastic answers. If you don't hire me, it's your loss. He. Yes, do that. Go like this, right? That's highly professional. As a CEO, I have to perfect my ability to go after I say something, right? Especially in like a shareholder meeting or something. Greetings from California. That reminds me of the Zeppelin song, Going to California. Going to California with an aching in my heart. Jed Comics. Watched your tips for an interview a few years back. Gave me confidence and really helped land the job. Thanks. Congratulations. Great job, Jed. Yeah, it's just a dog and pony show. That's all it is. It's people that don't know you. They want to feel confident in picking you. So they ask you all these silly questions. They're just, I don't know. I'm just not a proponent of this way of hiring people. There are other ways of hiring people that work far better. Okay, what if you just finished school with zero experience? That's a great question. You know what? Let's talk about that since I don't have many notes. Just for a second. Listen, do you really have zero experience? The answer is usually no, okay? Yes, you've been in school, but what have you done in school? Have you done group work? Have you done projects? Have you done anything where you were commended? You were recognized for going above and beyond, right? Maybe you had a teacher, or instructor, or professor that complimented you and, said they appreciated your effort or your work or some insightful thing that you did. Okay, these are all great examples to use, okay? So first of all, you don't have no experience. You might not have any career-related work experience yet, but you know what? Everybody starts out with zero career-related work experience, okay? So you're in the same boat as everybody else. Now, you can also do other things, okay? Have you volunteered for anything? Have you done any extracurricular activities? Have you done sports? Have you done like music or, like anything like that? Okay, you've done some stuff. So you will be able to give some stories to back up your abilities in a job interview, okay? Which means that behavioral-based questions, which these days, most questions they ask in job interviews tend to be behavioral-based questions. Those are the questions that start with, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time you did this. Tell me about a time you did that, right? You should be able to answer those because you've done some stuff, okay? You've had to meet deadlines. You've had to overcome challenges. All the basic components are there, okay? So you've got stuff to talk about. The thing that would be good would be before you go into the job interview, when you do your preparation, your rehearsal, okay? Think about that stuff. Have stories. Like when was a time that, you had to deal with an unpleasant boss or a demanding boss? That could be like a teacher. That could be a coach, right? I guarantee you, if you go in there and you have no experience, but they fire a bunch of questions at you, especially behavioral questions, and you have a great answer for each one based on your experiences, which I know you have. I mean, everyone has these, okay? You're gonna impress them. They're gonna look beyond the whole no experience thing, okay? If you've had, casual jobs as a teenager, right? You work in, the sort of entry level, you're flipping burgers or, whatever, entry level sales thing, or just summer job where you're doing a manual labor thing. I mean, anything like that. Maybe you've worked in a family business. Maybe your uncle has a business or something. You can still draw from that kind of stuff, right? Or if you haven't done it yourself, as a last resort, you could say, well, I haven't done that myself, but I have an older brother or a father or a friend or whatever that's been in that situation, and this is how they handled it, and that's how I would handle it also, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can say, okay? So don't let that stop you. You actually have more experience than you think. Ukraine. Wow. Stay safe. Greetings from the Philippines. Nairobi, Kenya, capital of Kenya. Good morning from New York. Everybody's retracting their message. Yeah, I love that. Always say hi to someone and then retract it. Then they won't know what to think. Here in Colombia, if you have overweight, they don't hire candidates. Yes, that's actually a thing. That's a thing that's studied in HR, and they don't limit it to being overweight. It's actually called, believe it or not, the hotness factor. That's actually the term they use. Where if you're someone that's very physically attractive, male or female or anything, they have a greater propensity to be hired, a greater propensity to be promoted. Okay, and that's another thing that's sad but true. It's true. Now, that's a standard thing with people. Now, there are ways around that, right? By sort of circumventing the system and going around certain things. Like anything else, there's a way around any system, okay? And we're talking about the hiring system. We're talking about, generally on this channel, we end up talking about getting hired through standard channels. That means seeing a job ad, responding to it with an application, and then, you might go through applicant tracking software that filters your application. And then if you get through that, you may have a job interview with a recruiter. And sometimes it ends there, like you get hired. Or sometimes there's multiple rounds of interviews where you talk to not only recruiters, but hiring managers and other people too. Okay, so that whole thing I just described, that's what I call the standard channels of hiring. Okay? But as everybody knows, most people actually don't get hired like that. Okay? 75% of people who get hired through networking. Okay? Now, once again, don't take my word on this, because I know some people hear this, they give me an argument on it. It's like, don't take my word for it. Go out and verify that. You'll see. Go do. You can start with Google searches and then go and ask around friends and family. I mean, a lot of times people get hired because someone puts a good word for them. Now it's not necessarily corruption, because if they're qualified for the job, if somebody gives them a chance first and they've got what it takes, that's just how the world works. That's not how I think it should work. That's just how it works. Okay? That's what we have to deal with, right? But the great thing is that you can do this too. Even if you know nobody, there are ways for you to get hired this way. Okay? You go out, you make connections with hiring managers. Okay? You could do it online if you're an introvert. You don't have to talk to a single person. You don't have to have a single phone call with anyone or anything like that. Okay? But we're dealing mainly with standard channels, because especially young people that are starting out, that's kind of the default thing where everybody just assumes that's how everybody gets all jobs. And what actually happens is that for lower level jobs, entry level jobs, that is how a lot of people get a job. I don't know what the stats are on that. It might be like 50%, something like that. 50% of all people that get hired for entry level jobs get hired through standard channels. But as you get progressively higher level jobs, say you're like supervisor level, manager level, and then upper level managers and all that, as you go further higher up, okay, you go higher up, that's totally proper English. If you go further higher up, right, that's how words are meant to be used. The higher you go, the level of job, the more those jobs are not posted publicly, and they're done through the hidden job market, which means networking, right? So learning how to get hired through networking is actually a good ability, because that will serve you throughout the rest of your working life. Dogan says, greetings from Bursa, Turkey. Turkey was Ankara, I think, right? Looking for a middle upper management position. I'm very lucky to meet you. Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you too. yes, you see, the way you're going to go about that is going to be completely different to how you get hired for an entry-level job, right? This is the thing. Let's see here. No problem with the message. Can you give a tip on how to answer the question on what are your weaknesses or how to answer this question better? Well, I did a whole live stream on that, and I have videos on that. So check those out. Bottom line is, if you look, my opinion on this, based on my experience, is don't believe people that say be honest and give a weakness, because a lot of the time you're not dealing with somebody who is reasonable and deals with you in a reasonable way. What they will do a lot of times is that if you give an honest weakness, they'll simply use that as a reason to eliminate you, because your competition, other candidates, haven't given an actual weakness. They've given like a baloney weakness that doesn't really count. So the recruiters haven't really heard anything bad about them. But then they talk to you and you give them something bad about yourself. So who would you eliminate? You're going to eliminate the person that you know there's something wrong with. That makes them risky. So, okay, so go check out my video on that. It's a little bit complicated. Okay, well, people are asking questions about all kinds of different topics. So I want to try and keep this sort of on track with the topic for today, which is, how to sell yourself in a job interview. How do you answer, why should we hire you? That's kind of the gist. So, yeah. Okay. So we've established that being asked this question, why should we hire you, is a great thing. This is the kind of question you want to be asked. You answer with a sales pitch essentially about you. You give them reasons to hire you. You tell them what you have. You tell them what you can do. You tell them what you've done. Things like this, right? What your capabilities are. These are compelling reasons to hire you. Now, the things you get, okay, the things that you give them, okay, I can do this, I've done this, I have this. These should line up with the things that they've already told you they're looking for. So if they're looking, like I said, if they're looking for someone with 5 years experience in this, you say, why should you hire me? Well, it sounds like you're looking for somebody with 5 years experience in X, and I have that. I mean, it sounds like I'm a perfect fit. I know you're also looking for somebody who has this qualification. I've got that qualification. Not only do I have the qualification, but I've sort of studied up on that in that area since I got the qualification. So, I really know my stuff in that area. It says that you're looking for someone that has these skills, that can program this language or, operate this machinery. Well, I spent 3 years operating that machinery, so I know it very well. I can do that. Right? So you're giving them the things that they want to hear. And if the person you're talking to is a recruiter, they're liking this. Okay. They're sort of going down that list. They're going check, 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 check. Right. Okay. Now, there's some things on that list that are not going to be explicitly stated. Okay. A lot of those are soft skills, right? So they're not going to write on the job posting, we want somebody trustworthy. We want somebody that's punctual. We want somebody that's charismatic because they have to deal with customers. They're usually not going to write that stuff. Okay. So that is kind of unstated. If they stated it, everybody who came in would say, oh, I'm very charismatic, or like, now that I know that's important to you, I will try and convince you I'm charismatic, right? Intentionally, they leave it off the job posting so they can observe people as they naturally are and see, okay, that person's charismatic, that person not so much, right? They don't realize that I'm judging them on that, so hopefully they're not faking it, right? So that's that hidden criteria. Now, a lot of that you can guess, okay? You can guess all that stuff. Okay, you want to work on being friendly, being likable. Okay, people respond to people who are friendly and likable. Try and be polite. Like when they say be professional, a big part of that, a lot of times, is being polite. you make the other person feel good dealing with you. Okay, so if you go to the job interview and you give the interviewer a hard time, right? They ask you, why should we hire you? And then you say, well, why would I want to work here? Right? I mean, you're giving them a hard time. Do you think they enjoy dealing with somebody like that? Probably not. Okay. I mean, hey, there's exceptions to everything. And, you know, all kinds of things happen out there. There's all kinds of weird people looking for weird things. But generally speaking, they respond to pleasant people that make them feel good. If you're dealing with someone who's kind of a jerk, usually you're not going to want to deal with them, which means you're not going to want to hire them. Right? All things being equal. So a lot of these are standard, Sunday morning. A lot of these are standard soft skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills, okay, being likable, being polite, understanding protocol, okay. And the things that you choose to say, ideally, should not make people feel awkward at all. So if you had to tell a story in the job interview about a time you did something or other, you know, don't tell a story that makes people feel awkward. Okay? You know, this kind of thing. And you have to be able, another skill is being able to get along with not just one type of person, but many different types of people. Okay? So you can get along with an introvert person who works in operations, and you can get along with a very extrovert person that works in sales. Okay? You can get along with somebody that's kind of in the warehouse driving a forklift, and you can get somebody who is, I don't know, a vice president that works in an office, right? When you meet these people, you can have a conversation with them. They enjoy the conversation. Okay? You know, that's another important soft skill. Okay, maybe you don't deal with customers. You're not like a salesperson. You're not, you know, a customer service person. That's not you. You're like the person that works in the warehouse. You're the person that programs computers. You know, you don't deal with customers. You don't deal with like selling anything. Okay, and they're hiring you for a job like that. You have to drive a forklift, or you've got to, you know, develop software. But you also can talk to and interact with customers in an appropriate way. You can be very polite. You can make them feel good about interacting with you. I mean, this is a very good soft skill. I've seen a lot of operations type jobs where you're interviewing many qualified people. They all could do the job, right? I mean, it's kind of, when it comes to their skills, you almost want to roll a dice to figure out who to choose because they're all really good. You know, and unfortunately, you can't hire all of them. You have to pick somebody. So a lot of times, the tiebreaker goes to things like soft skills. Okay? So these are all things on their criteria that they're looking for. Okay? So when you answer this question, you're going to be showing off as many of those as possible and explicitly mentioning a lot of the requirements. So they get the picture that you're the person that has all of them, right? All the requirements and all the, I don't know what you call them, the unstated requirements. Let's see. What do you think? Okay, where did I leave off here? So the Metal Hunter. Awesome. Rock on. What do you think the main properties of an entry-level job recruiter is looking for? Entry-level job. Okay. Entry-level job, speaking very generally here, because that's like many different things. They're looking for someone that will do, first of all, that's qualified, okay, that can do the job. But beyond that, they're looking for somebody that will do what they're told and not complain or make a fuss. That's what people are really looking for. And the tragedy here is that if you have, or if you show like a lot of personality, or, you know, you show a lot of critical thinking skills. You don't just accept things at face value, you question them. Now, we all know that these are good traits to have. And even in your career, they're going to really help you. But the problem is, at the entry level, generally speaking, especially if you're being hired in a large organization that hires a lot of entry-level candidates to fill entry-level jobs at the same time, it's almost like being in a classroom at school. What does the teacher want? The teacher wants smart pupils, right? Students. But the teacher also would like students that just conform, that do what they're told. They don't make a fuss. They don't answer back. They don't question everything, right? They're just easy to deal with, right? Generally speaking, that's something they look for. Okay? So apart from meeting the posted requirements, all the technical requirements for the job, they're looking for somebody that has soft skills, like you're polite, you're articulate, you can speak properly, you can communicate well, you're easy to deal with. Okay, you don't make people feel awkward, or they feel like, do I have to repeat that? Did you get that? Like they tell you something and you don't acknowledge, you're just kind of like this, right? Yeah, I understood you. Like they want someone that they can deal with easily, that's not going to need a ton of attention all the time. Okay? Those are going to be some of the things they're looking for an entry-level job. Okay? And then on top of it, they're looking for somebody friendly, somebody easy to deal with. Okay? So I know this sounds idiotic, but it's true. Work on looking friendly, work on your smile. I hate using the word smile because it's not a smile. I'm trying to do it right now. I'm trying to look friendly instead of looking like this, right? Do this, right? Instead, you try and look friendly, right? You try and look like you're approachable, right? That goes a long way. It really does. So these are some of the things to think about for the entry-level job. Should you take this chance to show off other factors that may not be relevant but set you apart from others? Look, there's exceptions to everything, but I would say no. Generally, no. If you're in an entry-level job, no. Now, look, there's going to be people out there that are looking for all kinds of things, all kinds of crazy things, right? But generally speaking, no, because first of all, in a job interview, one problem that comes up is that you may think you have a strength. I have a strength. I can type 200 words a minute. That's a strength. Most people would consider that a pretty cool skill, right? But if you're up for a job where you drive a forklift in a warehouse, that's the job, and they ask you, why should we hire you? And you say, well, I could type 200 words a minute. That signals a couple of things, and both of them are bad. One, it signals that, first of all, this strength you have, if that's your strength, it's totally not applicable to this job. I mean, if you're driving a forklift, that's not the same thing as typing. You don't have to type to drive a forklift. Two different things. So it's irrelevant. And number two, if they say, what's your strength, or why should we hire you? What's your number one selling point? And you say something that's totally irrelevant to the job, that signals that you don't understand what this job needs. They might think, well, you think you're going to be typing if we hire you for this forklift warehouse job. You're not. This is about driving a forklift. So if you're thinking you're going to be typing and I hire you for this forklift job, you're probably going to be disappointed when you realize that there's no typing involved, because you seem to think that typing is required. So that's how that skill that strength, which is not relevant, can work against you if you say it in a job interview. Okay? Okay, so you've got to give them the things that they're looking for. For whatever reason, they consider those things important. Sometimes we shake our head, about how they think those are important for the job. They say we're hiring for a forklift and we want somebody that can lift 200 pounds. And we want someone that, I don't know, like some other thing that's not really related to it. That, knows the entire history of the cardboard box, right? Like they might list those on there as strengths. Like we're looking for someone who has these, right? And you might think like, what does that have to do with driving a forklift? That's stupid. You don't have to know the history of a cardboard box to drive a forklift, right? But for whatever reason, they've got it into their heads that that's important. So if that's what they say they want, if you want to get in their good graces, that's what you have to speak to, like it or not. Now, I agree with you. You don't need to know the history of the cardboard box, but these people seem to think you do, right? So that's the thing, okay? This is a problem. Just because you think you have a strength, and you could be right, if they don't see it as a strength, it actually works against you if you talk all about it. Well, that's a very good question. I don't recall ever being asked that before. Okay, we're talking about weaknesses. How about why should we not hire you? Well, okay, if they say why shouldn't we hire you, or give me the number one reason why we wouldn't hire you, that's another form of the question, what is your weakness? Okay, so go see the answer for what is your weakness, because that's just another form of it. Okay, now, you bring up a very good point. Okay, this question, how did I phrase it? Why should we hire you? Okay, this question is going to be asked in pretty much every single job interview. Okay, every interview you go to, chances are like 99% chance they're going to ask you this question, but they may not phrase it like this. They may not use these exact words. They may phrase it differently. Another way of phrasing it is saying, what are your strengths? Right? That's essentially asking, why should we hire you? Right? It's like what do you do well? Like, what's the reason why we should hire you? What's your strength? Same question. Okay? What do you value most about yourself? Or, what's your most important skill? Or, these are all rephrasings of the same question. So they're going to ask you this question. It's just they may not use these exact words. They're basically asking you for you to give your selling points. Okay? Maybe they're only asking for your most important selling point, or maybe they're asking you for all of them, but at some point in the job interview, they're going to ask you to give your selling points. And if they don't, that's probably a bad company, okay? I know of some companies, what they do is you never get a chance to speak freely in a job interview. They sit you down and they, not only do they have like sort of pre-planned questions, but they're almost like yes or no type answers, very short answers that somebody then writes down. And they intentionally do this so that you don't end up having a free-flowing conversation. I really don't like that. I mean, that's a red flag to me of a bad place to work. The obvious thing is, like, if you're going to do that, why don't you just send me a questionnaire? I mean, why are you wasting all of our time by having me show up in person just to answer, like, essentially a questionnaire? What advice would you give to a fresh graduate who has zero experience? Well, it depends what your goals are. I mean, what are you trying to do? So when you say, what advice would I give you? My advice would be to live a healthy lifestyle and, go for your dreams, but if you're asking with regard to like how to get a job, my next question would then be, well, do you want an entry-level job? Or would you want to, like, you say you're a graduate. if you're a graduate in some field, presumably you're looking for a career job, right? Now, without knowing what profession, what vocation, what occupation you're talking about, here's something you can do. Okay, it's a little bit of a jump for some people, especially introverts. Okay, but if you can push yourself to do this, it is invaluable. Okay, and that would be to contact some people within your chosen industry. Okay, so let's say you've just graduated with a degree in business, or a degree in accounting, or a degree in law. Okay, what I would recommend is you contact some people in those fields. Like if you graduated with a law degree and you're just starting out, you have no experience working in that industry, and you're just starting out, you're totally green. Contact some prominent lawyers in your hometown or your region, okay? And ask and see if you can get informational interviews, okay? If you've never heard of an informational interview, this is something extremely useful, okay? It's like a job interview, but you're not going for a job. There's no mention of jobs, okay? What you're doing is you're sitting down with somebody and you're wanting to learn from them, okay? So for example, let's say you just graduated in law and you don't know anything about working in a law firm. You don't know anything about what a lawyer does in the real world, and you're looking for advice from someone who knows, okay? So what would be really cool would be to talk to several really successful lawyers, okay, in your hometown that you can just meet. You can take half an hour, you can go meet them. And you can go I'm not talking about paying for their services. I'm talking about you go have a coffee with them. You say, do you have 20 minutes, half an hour to spare? I'm a new graduate. I'm just starting out in my career, and I would very much like to get your expert opinion on this industry, and where it's going, and what you've learned in your career that's been most useful to you. Okay, now a lot of people are going to say no, or they're not going to respond, but some people will say yes. And you have a few meetings with high-profile lawyers, maybe a couple of lawyers that work in their own law practices. They're like senior partners or whatever. And then other people that are maybe trial lawyers or civil lawyers, or whatever you're doing, right? Like I'm sure there's more than one career path for someone with a law degree, right? And you have these options open to you. You could go down this path or that path. So you sit these people down, you say in your opinion, what should I do? What's the thing that really helped you? What would you recommend that I do? Or, and they will say, here, I recommend you do this because I did this and I found that this is the case and that's the case and this is the case, and if you want to avoid all that kind of stuff, it took me a while to figure this out, but I learned that this is this principle. And so I'd recommend that you do this, look into that, right? Okay. So you're getting, information from people that know, okay? You're not getting information from people like me. I'm not a lawyer. If someone asks me, what should I do to further my legal career? Honestly, I don't know too much about that. I'm not a lawyer myself. I haven't spent a lot of time in that world. So the best person to talk to would be a successful lawyer in your hometown, maybe somebody who graduated from the same place that you did. Okay. So it's possible to do this. I have videos on this on my channel. Okay. I'm not going to get into it here, but there's a video I did within the last 3 months, if you're interested, that goes more into how to do this. It's called, what was it called? What was the title? It was called How Successful People Get Jobs. And it shows you a little bit how that process works, using Google Maps, using LinkedIn, how you contact these people, how you discover them, how you contact them, that kind of thing. Okay, so if I was just starting out, that's what I would do. Because they don't teach you a lot of stuff in school. They teach you the theory and they teach you the principles, which is fine. There's definitely a place for that. But your knowledge is incomplete That's what a lot of times they're trying to fill in through experience, right? And you can get a jump start on that by talking to successful people in your field that are maybe in a similar situation as you. They come from this region or this city or wherever you live. They maybe graduated from the same place as you, but they took a certain career path. And it's really valuable just sitting down with them and saying, now from their point of view, the reason they're doing this is because it's very flattering when somebody comes to you and says, I'd love to know your opinion, and I'd love to get, your thoughts on this thing that you know about and that's been very important to you, right? How often does that happen to you in your life? And someone comes, you know what? I think you're great. I would love to get your expert opinion on this thing. That doesn't happen too often, does it? But it feels good when it does. And it makes you want to go, yeah, sure. Hey, I got half an hour. Let's grab a drink or a coffee or, whatever, a tea. It's very flattering. It makes you feel like, you're this consummate expert that's famous and everybody wants to be like you. So that's a big part of why people say yes. Okay. Because it's flattering to get this. Okay. So if you're young starting out, that's what I'd recommend. I know for some people, they're going to be so intimidated by the idea of doing that they're not going to do it. Okay. And that's fine. Okay. I understand. If you're an introvert, maybe you don't have very advanced social skills. That's cool. I know from experience what that feels like. But if you can push yourself or you're brave enough to give it a try, it can really, really pay off. Let's see. How to answer what makes you different from other applicant. Oh, that's good. That's a really good question. Honestly, if I was asked that question by a recruiter, you know what I would say? I would say the answer to this question, the answer to why should we hire you? Forget about different from other candidates. Like how would you know how you are different from the other candidates? Do you know any of the other candidates? Do you know what they've said? Of course you don't. Right? It's like somebody saying, okay, thank you for coming to this job interview. We're meeting for the first time. It's very nice to meet you. Now, here's a question. How are you different from the last person I talked to? It's like, that's unanswerable. How, you don't know the last person they talked to, right? It's silly, right? They're not looking for somebody different. They're looking for a perfect candidate for this job. That's what they're looking for, okay? So the answer is, I have this combination of things, right? If you want an answer to that. Not many people have this combination of things, but I got it. And coincidentally, it's all the things you're looking for, right? I mean, you don't say that part, but then you start going down it. And you're proud of the fact that you have that combination of things. Right? That's a perfect answer, in my opinion. Typing example would only work if they specifically stated data entry was part of the job. Okay. Yeah. I mean, being able to type well is kind of a very universal, transportable skill. But yes, I think within the context that you're talking about, you're bang on. How do you handle stress and what do you do in stressful situations? Have the same answer. They seem like the same question. It's a, pardon my French, it's a bullshit question, but yeah. The only real distinction is look, as you guys, I think, already know, I mean, there's behavioral questions where you answer with a story, okay? A specific story that happened to you, right? Tell me about a time you handled stress poorly, right? That would be a behavioral question. because you're answering with a story. Well, 2 years ago, I was in this job and my boss asked me to do this, and this is what I did, and this is what happened, and this is how it turned. That's a specific story, right? Okay, so that's a behavioral question. They also ask the question, how do you handle stress? That's not a behavioral question. Okay, or like you said, what do you do in stressful situations? That's not asking you for a specific story. That's a generalization. Well, what do? I take a deep breath. Then I jump into a corner, I jump up and down 10 times, I come back to my desk and I'm fine. Like whatever. That's not a specific story. That's like, you give like an answer, right, to that. Okay? A generic answer. The only distinction that I've made in the past is, some people answer that question, as if they were asked, how do you avoid stress? And I don't know what they say. They say things like, well, I try and plan out my work so nothing bottling. Yeah, that's avoiding the stress. But that's not the question. The question is, what do you do? How do you handle the stress once it's upon you? Once you are stressed, what do you do? Okay. Now, if you're at a very entry-level type job, just being able to say something coherent, I guess, is a pass a lot of times, right? But if you're at a higher level job, okay, you're up for a manager type job, okay? You're going to be supervising ultimately 50 people, directly or indirectly. You're going to be responsible for maybe $2 million worth of assets and maybe a $1 million a year budget, okay, or whatever. Okay, like a manager type job, okay? If they ask you this question in that type of job, you need to have a more sophisticated answer. You can't just say, well, I don't get stressed. I plan my work so I never get stressed. Nah. No one's going to believe that. If you're in charge, it's a stressful job. Even if it's only the firing people part. Every once in a while, eventually, you're probably going to have to fire somebody. Just playing the odds, that's how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't happen very often at all, but sooner or later it's going to. You can't tell me that you don't get stressed when you have to fire someone that you've worked with for a while. You know what I mean? And you can't just say, well, I plan my work so that I don't get stressed. No, it doesn't work. Okay? So depending on what level you're at, you're going to give different answers, right? More is going to be required of you. If you have somebody said earlier in the chat that they were looking for like sort of a higher level management job. Yeah, this is where you're going to be answering in terms of behavioral questions. Like, look, a situation that, stress is unavoidable is X. And this is what I've done in the past. And, they are asking this question because they don't want to hire someone who's going to just go nuts. You can't take the pressures of the job. You bottle it up and bottle it up and bottle it up, and then bam, right? You just lose it. You lose your temper, or something like that, like on the job. That's very bad. If you're in charge, it's very bad for many different reasons. So they want to know that you have the emotional intelligence to know yourself, to know when, like, okay, I'm just about to lose it. I can't take this frustration, right? And you do something about it. Okay. I got the job because of you. I start Tuesday. Awesome. Charisse Monique, congratulations. You did a great job. You obviously knocked it out of the park. You should be very proud. This keeps moving, so I can't, it's hard to tell where I left off. Thank you for sending so many questions and things. It's great to see such great participation from everybody. I'm flattered that you're here, and I hope you're finding it at least somewhat useful. How to answer what makes you okay, we already did that. Typing example. Why is it a red flag? I don't know what you're responding to. Say again if you want me to answer that. I was ghosted by a company after 2 interviews with no response. What should I do? Nothing. Listen, as heartbreaking as it is, this is how a lot of companies operate, how a lot of recruiters operate. I can partially understand why they do this, but there's still no excuse for it. They don't want to deliver bad news, okay? And I can understand why some people don't react very well. Like, it's not the recruiter's fault. They interview 50 people. They can only choose one. They can only hire one. So you have to say no to 49 people. It's a bad situation to be in. But having said that, a lot of them are very disingenuous. They lie to you. They say, oh yeah, great. We're doing really well. I'll call you in 2 days. And then they never talk to you again. They will never take your call. They'll never return your email. Yeah, it's very misleading. So listen, you've got to change your attitude. Your attitude in a job search has to be, you focus on creating opportunities for yourself and then pursuing them. Okay? If you get like a bite, like if someone wants to interview you and they say great things, great. But that you shouldn't really think too hard about it. The only thing that matters is if a job offer rolls in, okay? Before that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hold any water. And you can assume that anything they say to you beyond that point could be disingenuous. It could be a lie. It could be like, just saying something nice because they don't have the guts to say something true, right? So that's okay. I know how demoralizing it can be, but keep focusing on the next thing you're pursuing, the next opportunity. Okay, never stop and think like, oh, maybe I can stop now because I'm waiting for these guys to give me an offer like they said. No, always be looking at the next thing. Okay? Ooh, my buddy, the Metal Hunter says, is it worth mentioning experience that you've had that doesn't necessarily have a similarity to the job you're being interviewed for? I basically just answered that. Am I reading the same question again? But yeah, check like 5-10 minutes ago if to get the answer to that. Please draft a small paragraph, 15 years in hotel industry for introduction. Is that something you were asked to do? Please draft a small paragraph. I don't know precisely what you mean. Like you're up for a job or that's what you have. It shouldn't be too hard drafting a paragraph. Just, yes, I have a long background in the hotel industry. I also have a great passion for it. I've done this work. I've done that work. I've engaged in these roles. I have a particular passion for this role, but I value having done several roles. You really get insight into how your role fits into the operation of this big business in general. And for that reason, I'm interested in bringing my experience to whatever role, and also maybe taking on different roles within the hotel business to further get that insight into how everything works. I don't know, something like that. That's some high-level baloney that will fool. I mean, it could be true, but that's something that sounds good. What should one do regarding ageism in recruitment? Well, listen. We're starting to get off topic, but I'll just answer this one. Some places only hire young people. Okay. For good reasons and for bad reasons. A lot of times they only hire young people because young people are naive. It's not their fault. They're green. They haven't been around to see all kinds of scams and deceptions pulled on them. Those of us that have been around for a while longer, we recognize certain tactics of ways of people that companies would exploit you. Young people are very trusting, and they don't have a lot of experience. They haven't been fooled a bunch of times. They haven't been duped a bunch of times. So a lot of bad companies will make it a point just to hire young people because we can fool them. We can exploit them and they won't realize it. Right? Now, obviously, this is a very pessimistic outlook, but But that's one of the things going on. Some places only hire old people. Okay? So if you're young and the decision maker that decides whether you get hired is 65 years old, they probably won't see a lot of value in you. If you're 65 years old and the person deciding whether you get the job is 20 years old, they probably won't see a lot of value in you. Right? So if you're 65 years old and if you apply for a place that employs a lot of older people and the person making the decision about should they hire you, that person, the decision maker, they're 65 years old also, chances are your age will not be a problem. Okay? So substitute 65 years with whatever age you are. Okay? There's all kinds of perceptions. Okay? And we all tend to think that we're the victim. Everybody, like if I'm old, I'll think that, oh, they only want young people. If I'm young, I'll tend to think, oh, they only want old people. Right? That's how we tend to think. We have a distorted view of these things sometimes. Okay? Sometimes. But that's one way you can get around the ageism thing, if that's a big concern, is look for places that employ a lot of people in your age group and apply there. Okay, and if the person making the decision is the same age as you, roughly, that's how you get around ageism. Okay, can you rewatch the stream later? Yes, you can. I have these live streams. They're going to be on my main channel for 12 to 48 hours, somewhere in there. And then I'm going to move them over to my second live channel. That's where I'm archiving them, my second channel. So if you go to The Company's Expert 2, that's my other YouTube channel, that's where you find all these streams. So that's what I've been doing. Oh, and by the way, this Wednesday, I'm going to be having a live stream. By several people have asked me to do a live stream on business, like not just how to get a job, but just more general sort of business topics. And I'm going to do it because talking about how to get a job is a tiny subset of kind of what I'd love to talk about. But so if you have any interest in sort of like larger business issues, tune in this Wednesday. I'm going to do a live stream on this channel. And I want to do a shout out to somebody from Jeremy from Organizational Engineering. He has a YouTube channel that deals with broader business topics and things like this. So if you're interested in that, check out his channel, Organizational Engineering. Yeah, like the thing is, business topics, they do kind of fit in to this whole getting a job thing. If you are ambitious and you would like to sort of not just have an entry-level job, but have climb the ladder a bit, be a boss, have more responsibility, more authority. Well, mainly responsibility. That's what you should want, not just I want to order people around. But learning some of this stuff can further your career. Like you tack on business knowledge to just about any other career, it will help you. Okay? It'll help you in your career in a million different ways. Okay? On the low end, it could be just like something to talk about with the recruiter or hiring manager. Here's a general business topic that, here's like a business thing, a trend that's coming in. What are the pros? What are the cons? Right? They'll think more highly of you. They'll get the impression that you have more generalized knowledge. Okay. I can tell you that what I have found valuable in employees, like lower level employees, is that they don't just know their little occupation. They know a bit about other areas of business too, so that they see how their little piece fits in with all the other pieces to make this entity work. Okay? Like, for example, you have people that work in operations and they understand the challenges that the sales department is facing. Right? So They don't just go ahead and do something because it's easiest for them. They go ahead and do something because they realize that this would be easier. This would help the sales department do their job, right? Those are good employees. If you want to be valuable to a business, that's really valuable. Not every person hiring recognizes that, especially in large organizations. Usually the people hiring are even more clueless than you are. But, especially in smaller or mid-sized businesses, that's where most people work. That the person that's hiring you will recognize that as something very valuable. Okay? So knowing a bit about the other roles and how they all work together, that's very valuable. It helps you do your job better. Somebody was saying earlier, how can I distinguish myself from other candidates? Now, I wouldn't say this if you were talking with a recruiter, but if you were talking to a hiring manager, okay, someone who's going to be your boss, some manager, they say, what distinguishes you from other candidates? You say, well, in addition to having all the things that I think you're looking for, or at least you mentioned in the job interview, and having a strong background in that area, I also have had exposure to this, maybe the accounting side of things, or the sales and marketing side of things, or the operations side of things, right? Or the legal side of things. I have an understanding and appreciation for that, and I see how my role relates to that. Now, if you're talking to somebody who runs the business or runs a big chunk of it, they will probably recognize that and go like, ooh, that's good. That's good. I want people like that. Okay, all things being equal. And now that it has gotten brighter, or darker, no, it's getting brighter now. I was going to turn up the brightness, but anyway. What is this? Joshua, how to deal with eye service, pretense, and toxicity in the workplace. It's almost impossible to not see people exhibiting the sickening behavior, is what you're trying to say? It's so unhealthy. Eye service, pretense, and toxicity. Like how to deal with it? Well, look, the first way to deal with it is to sort of just accept the fact that that's in a lot of places. I don't know quite what you mean by eye service. You mean like perception, optics? Look, human beings are, we judge by appearances. We judge by superficial, immediate kind of criteria a lot of the time. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I'm not saying that it should be like that. It's a shame that it's like that. But knowing this, how can this knowledge help you? Okay? Like job interviews, for example. I mean, they don't really know you. They're not making a decision, based on anything real. They're making a decision based on a very superficial encounter, right? It's a totally artificial encounter. Every question is not real. It's managed. And every answer is highly managed. You rehearse. You're here looking at my live stream for like how to answer job interview questions. I mean, it's the furthest thing from giving an honest answer, for keeping it real, right? They're not really seeing you. They're seeing some facade, right? And they're making their assessment of you based on that. Now, as far as toxicity, I mean, that word can mean many different things. But there's a lot of organizations, like their corporate culture is toxic. What that means, culture just means how things are done here, the way things are done here. That's all it means. So how people behave, the type of language that they use, their behavior, how they act, how they treat people, what's normal in that place. That's all it means. Okay. And some of those cultures are just really bad. It's usually caused by people that don't know how to manage being in charge. Now, corporate culture is not set by any one person. the people most directly responsible that have the most influence are the executive management team. Okay, so like the people running the company, but it's not like they don't have total control over it. They can sort of try and influence it, but everybody contributes to it. I would go as far as to say, like, look, if the place has a toxic work culture, people are mean, people do bad things, like they betray each other, they sabotage each other, they judge on very silly criteria. They say, like, if someone is the biggest jerk, they go, oh, that person is a good employee. And if someone is kind of like nice enough to people, they see that as a sign of weakness. Things like this. If that's their value system and their culture, and you don't fit into that, I would try and leave. Like, I wouldn't try and fix it. I wouldn't try and toughen up. I mean, you can maybe, I suppose you could sort of toughen up a little bit, have a thicker skin, but that turns you into a bad person. You know what I mean? Being nice to people is a good thing. Despite what you sometimes see in Hollywood movies about business, being nice is good for business. I mean, when someone is a real jackass and they lie to you, does that make you want to deal with them? Of course not. Right? And if you're a customer, same thing. If you're dealing with someone who's trying to sell you something and they're a real jerk, pressuring you into stuff, saying things that aren't true, all things being equal, you will rather do business with somebody else than them. Okay? It's just that simple. And there's a lot of people out there that are just, they've never been to business school. They never learned how to run anything. And so they get into their head that, oh, to be in charge, you have to be a jerk. It's like, no, you don't. It's quite the opposite, actually. And to back up that opinion, they'll point to some anecdotal type things where people have succeeded despite being a tremendous jerk. And they'll say, oh, well, that proves it. It's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, is that how you behave? Are you attracted to jerks that lie? Of course you aren't. Right? So why would a customer be attracted to that? It's quite the opposite. Customers want to trust someone and they want to have a good relationship with somebody. After all, you're paying money. Why would you deal with some hostile, angry person, through choice? So if you don't fit into a toxic work culture, don't feel bad about it. Okay? I know it sucks me saying, like, you should leave your job or you should find another job. That's always, change is always hard, But if you look at it through the lens of, like, your life, okay, it's probably a good thing if you get out of there into a place where people recognize your value and they treat you like a human being and you treat others like a human being, and that's encouraged, right? Okay, it's not just good for your health, it's good for a business. That business will tend to last longer, all things being equal, than, one with really toxic corporate culture. If this was a group interview, should you try to play off the previous candidates' responses? No. I mean, how would you know? First of all, my question to you would be, how would you know the previous candidates' responses? Unless they told you. And if they're telling you, well, the last person said this, once again, that doesn't sound like a good place to work. Because that's not a polite thing to do. Okay, you're not making people feel welcome. Like, for example, I'm going to invite you to a job interview. Okay? And in our interview, I'm going to tell you all about what the last guy said and how great they did. How would that make you feel? Probably not good. Alternatively, I'm going to tell you how bad the last person was. How would that make you feel? Well, you might feel like, okay, this is a person that likes to talk about people behind their back and ridicule them behind their back. Is that the person you want to work for? Is that the place you want to be, where they do that to you? That's a red flag. Okay, the problem is that, they've got sort of younger people thinking, like either being desperate for a job or thinking they're desperate for a job. And so you'll say anything just to get in, and this is what they want, because then you will accept a job that's bad for you, where you don't get paid very much and you get exploited, and they just take advantage of you. In most cases, there are better places to work, just that it's in the hidden job market. And I've already talked about that. Someone says, are you a hiring manager? Not now, but I was. I've been a lot of things in my career, including CEO of a smaller company. And I've had to hire people. I've had to fire people. Like all of that stuff. I've done exit interviews with people. I've been training manager. I've been the head of risk management. And I've helped build a couple of businesses. And I've helped consult on many others. How to get my resume shortlisted easily for interview? Well, that's like saying, how do I get hired? Please answer. Well, that's unanswerable. I don't know anything about you. I can't speak specifically to you. And that's a big question. That's kind of outside of what we're doing here today with this why should we hire you question. Super chats. We got some super chats. Adam. Thank you, Adam. If you had a question, feel free to ask it. I will answer it. And my friend Padoru, I have avoided saying your name because I knew I would mispronounce it. Padoru, thank you so much. Thank you for your help. You're most welcome. Look, how to get your resume shortlisted. Like I said, if you're going to a recruiter, recruiters care about requirements. They are paid to find candidates that meet a list of requirements. That's what they're paid to do. That's what a recruiter's job is. So if you are going to a recruiter, okay, you get your resume shortlisted by having all the things that they're looking for, okay? And more than that, it isn't enough just to have them. You have to make them see that you have them, okay? So part of that is using the same lingo, using the same words to describe the things you have that they're using, okay? I've done videos on this. Instead of saying like, if they're saying like, we want someone that has experience analyzing net profit, don't say you have experience analyzing, income, right? Like you can describe things with different words. And if they've chosen to use certain words, you mirror the words they're using to describe those things. So it's an obvious match, right? Because a lot of times recruiters don't understand the subject matter of what they're hiring for, okay? They're given a list of requirements by a hiring manager. Hiring manager says, okay, you go out and you find people that have this. And they say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. And they do it. They don't know that like these things that they're hiring for are not things that they have in their background. They're just given a list of requirements and they have to find those people. Oh, excuse me for 1 second. Yeah, there we go. I'm back. Okay, so if I were you, I would do some research. Okay, don't just list, I have some videos, but look at other people, look at other sources. Okay, put it all together. If you really need help, I have a course called Get Hired. Link in the description. That takes you through everything. Everything you need to know. How to do your resume, how to find the job opportunities, how to apply for them, how to do the interviews, all of it, all in one place. It's something like 8 hours of video. It's more thought out than this, obviously. I'm just sort of off the cuff here. But it has examples, it has, scripts and like all that kind of stuff. So if that's of any interest to you, check out my Get Hired course. It's all in one place. Okay, back to the irrelevant strengths question. What if it was soft skills, say team leader at college typing team? Okay, the irrelevant strengths question, that's where you think something's a strength, but they don't agree with that necessarily. That's not what they're looking for. What if it was soft skills? So what, they're looking for soft skills, or you think you've got a strength in the form of a soft skill, and your example, like your experience that proves that is team leader at a college typing team? Like that's what you're saying? Maybe if you could just elaborate a little bit, I'd be happy to answer, but I don't fully understand exactly what you're asking, Padura. I will give you a proper answer if you just give me a bit more information. Adam, was rejected during my last interview for a professional position because they needed someone who could hit the ground running. Yes, as we go into the future, increasingly this is what we're seeing. We're seeing companies that don't want to spend time on training. They don't want to have a learning curve while they get the person onboarded. They want someone that just, within the first week, bam, they're doing their job. No more training necessary, no more onboarding necessary. That's a trend, right? Yeah, now, I mean, the other thing is that, I don't know. I mean, there's the way I think about this stuff, and then I think it might differ from the way everybody else thinks about it, or like you guys think of it. But for me, it's like, I mean, I'm highly trainable, and I mean, I'm not the most intelligent person in the world. I think most people are highly trainable. If you say you have a degree in law and they hire you as like a paralegal or a junior lawyer, or whatever. I mean, it shouldn't take you that long to start to be productive, right? I mean, you do know law, right? If you worked in a warehouse before and you're applying for a job as a warehouse manager, I mean, it shouldn't take you months to know what the hell you're doing when you get into that job. You've worked in warehouses before. Most jobs really are not rocket science, So, I mean, I think a lot of that fear of a learning curve, I think that exists primarily in the minds of a lot of recruiters, because recruiters don't know the subject matter of the positions they're hiring for. So they feel it's mysterious and intimidating to them. So if you say I haven't done this exact job before for 20 years, they might think, oh, well, how will you know what to do? Just because you did it in the past doesn't mean you know how to do it now. I've heard recruiters say that. If you don't use it, you lose it. And, there's someone that might have had a 20-year career doing something, but they haven't been in that role for 3 years, and a recruiter won't hire them under the twisted logic that, oh, well, you haven't done it for 3 years, so you've probably forgotten everything. It's like, that's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. I mean, there's all kinds of twisted thinking out there, and you have no control over it. All you have control over is how many jobs you apply for, and it's a numbers game. Some people are, it's just not going to work out. It could have been the perfect job that you'd have been perfect for, but they won't hire you for it because in their minds, you don't have some thing that they consider essential that is idiotic, right? That's not a requirement, but they think it is, right? And it wouldn't work out that way. There's no way you could have passed their criteria, right? It's stupid. It's disappointing, but the flip side of that is that you apply for another job and you'd like to have that job, but it's really shooting a bit above what you're maybe technically qualified to do. It's a bit of a stretch or a reach, right? But they think you're wonderful and they consider you qualified to do it. and you get it. Right? So, I mean, it's a numbers game. Okay, you can analyze these things to the nth degree and try and like plan for all these eventualities. But at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Okay. And that's where we come back to this question. Why should we hire you? If they've said they're looking for these technical requirements and you mention that you have them, and then you demonstrate that you have them, if they ask you behavioral interview questions and you pull out stories for when you were in that role and, all this kind of stuff to show that you know what you're talking about. And on top of that, you demonstrate some great soft skills. You're a professional. You look the part. You look like you belong there. They like you as a person. They click with you. You're friendly. You're polite. You're a good communicator and all that stuff. That's all you can do. On top of it, they even have like hidden political stuff, right? That thing where they post a job publicly, as if they're looking for someone when really they have an internal candidate the whole time that they were planning to hire, right? But they're only going through this motion to pretend, like to show the world that, no, we're looking outside of our company. It's not nepotism, right? You might walk into that and it's an unwinnable situation and it sucks and it's unfair, but you don't have control over that. The only thing you have control over is like the opportunities you generate for yourself and how you pursue them. And if you're trying to summon up a lot of opportunities, you're trying to pursue them, you're rehearsing them, that's all you can do. A lot of times people are asking questions like, they're not bad questions, but it's like, they're just, some of the questions are unanswerable, like, and it's impossible to get inside the head of some recruiter that you've never met before. You don't know how they think. You don't know what they care about or what they place priority on, I mean, the example I've said repeatedly that I've seen is that, people have a job search campaign and they won't hire candidates who support a sports team other than what the boss supports. Like, I've seen that. I'm not making that up. That's something I've seen. So imagine those people going away thinking like, oh man, I must have screwed up in the interview. Like I must have given a bad answer to something. What? I can't say those answers again. I have to come up with new answers. It's unfortunate. But it was an unwinnable situation. And it was no reflection on them as a person or their qualifications or their value. It was because some hiring manager had some idiotic, unrealistic criteria that had nothing to do with anything. And that's just what they decided. They said, I don't want anybody that I have to work with that like is rooting for the opposite sports team. Like, it's just so stupid, right? And this stuff happens every day. And I'm sure you've maybe unknowingly come up against that, where you were perfect for a job, at least in your mind, and they hired somebody else and you don't know what went on. And sometimes it's crap like this, So don't feel too bad, okay? All you can do is move on to the next one. And as I said, if this has happened to you a lot, where you're up, maybe you don't interview well, or someone said, oh, I'm overweight, so nobody hires me, or, whatever. It's like, if it's not going great, consider checking out some of the alternative ways of getting a job. It's not really alternative. Like networking is the number one way of getting a job, but it's not the first thing that young people think of because they've never been told this. They've never been shown it. Everyone just assumes that the only way to get a job is to go through job listings that are posted publicly and apply for it. That's not the only way to get a job. That's not even the most popular way to get a job. Usually, all those jobs, they're the jobs that are left over, the ones that they couldn't find candidates for with the other methods, the ones that nobody wants. So they post them publicly. Now it's open to everyone. Okay, So where did we leave off here? Was rejected. Yeah. I don't think the interview is much of a problem as having your resume screened by a computer. Yeah, well, look, I'll be honest with you, okay? If I'm completely honest with you, this is what I think of that CG. If you're applying to places that scan your resume with a computer, that's called applicant tracking software. You don't want any of those jobs, okay? I said this the last live stream I did. I said, that shows you how important you are to them. They don't even have the time or the courtesy to have a human, anyone in the company, look at your resume. That's how important you are. And the reason why they have applicant tracking software is because they're trying to filter out a huge volume of resumes. Those are your competitors. You're going in with 200 people to compete for a job. So statistically, all things being equal, your odds of getting that job are 0.5%, right? Instead of trying to get a job that way, check out networking. If you don't know anyone, that's fine. If you don't have any friends in high places, that's fine. You can still do networking. If you don't want to talk to a single person in person, that's fine. If you don't want to have a single phone call with anybody, that's fine. There are ways to do networking that don't require any of that. You could do it from your computer, and you're contacting people you don't know. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, like I said earlier, I've done a video, a couple months back called How Successful People Get Jobs. So to do a Google search, how successful, or a YouTube search, how successful people get jobs, the company's expert. Or you can just go to my channel and just scroll down, look at all the videos, scroll down. That should give you an idea of the type of thing you would do to get the job in the way that I would recommend. Okay. So I don't expect to convert you to this whole thing, but what I'm hoping is that I've sort of given you the desire to maybe do some research into these other ways of getting a job, because that's where, that's where the magic happens, right? How do you elevate yourself above a crowd when you're doing exactly the same thing that everyone else in the crowd is doing? You can't. You've got to do a non-standard thing. That's one of life's lessons. It's not just about how to get a job. It's about life's lessons, right? The only way to win at that game is to be the smartest person, or the strongest person, or the tallest person. Unless you're just born with a gift, you just stand out as being brilliant. Unless you have that, you can't win at that game, or it's very hard to win at that game. You need a lot of luck. Okay? Instead, you get the job because you're the only one that showed up. There's 200 people that applied for the job, but you're the only person that showed up in person and met the boss and handed the boss your resume and said, "It's very nice to meet you. I would love for you to consider me for this job because I know about your company. I think you guys do awesome work. If ever you're looking, I'd jump at the chance to work here. Thank you so much. Have a great day." Right? You're the only person that showed up and did that. So who are they going to look at first? They're going to look at you first. Your resume's at the top of the pile. Now, if you don't have what it takes, that doesn't do you any good. But if you're just as qualified as anyone else, you have the edge. Right? That's how a lot of things work in the world of business and in life in general. It's in my experience anyway. It's not about beating everyone at the same game. You can go outside the game. You don't have to get a job through standard channels. You can go around standard channels. And I tell people this, and some people, their immediate reaction is bullshit, is no, incorrect. Well, look, I'm living proof. That's the only way I've gotten a job, contract work, consulting clients. That's the only way I've done those things in nearly 10 years. I haven't done any other method. I've built a business just getting clients doing that. You know, I have not applied for a single job that says, we're looking for a consultant. It's posted publicly. We need someone with this. No. That's what you do when you're too cheap to hire one properly. Michael says, thank you for your videos. I got hired because of your tips. Congratulations, Michael. That's great. That's wonderful. You know, you guys, if you are between jobs, you're a lot more hireable than you think. You're a lot more valuable than it feels. You know, you really are. There's a lot of psychological things going on, you know, in a job search, right? And the thing that gets me is that recruiters, I pick on recruiters occasionally, but this is one of the reasons why I do. It's because, generally speaking, as a group, recruiters know that, you know, when you're between jobs, when you're trying to get hired, it's a very stressful situation. You've got lots of self-esteem issues. You know, you don't know what to do. You're very unsure of yourself. You're very delicate in that moment. And knowing this, they still can't be polite to you. They can't be upfront with you. You know, and that just adds even more fuel to the fire to like tear you down. And some people shy away from applying for more jobs because they feel so bad doing it. It's such an unpleasant experience that, you know, it's hard to believe that this is the cure for your problems, is to engage in this thing that makes you feel this tall, you know? Right. And that's my number one beef with recruiters. They sort of kick you when you're down. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They kick you when you're down. And I've seen that. I've experienced that in my early career. That was enough to sort of sour me my entire life, as you can probably tell. But I've realized that almost everybody else is in exactly the same boat, right? You know? And at the end of the day, they don't even do a good job of picking the right person. You might as well just throw, you know, names into a hat and pick it out randomly for all the good that does sometimes. You know, they can eliminate the absolute, like, you know, people that just, they're clearly not qualified for it. But beyond that, you know? Entertain says something very nice. Thank you, Entertain. I appreciate that. What? How should about experience elaborate put in resume? Listen, some people here, I know that English is not your first language, and that's cool. But if you are trying to get a job in a language, like in say English or another language, learn the language, like spell check, grammar check, as much as you can to speak or type grammatically correct. That will have a tremendous impact on the value that people see in you, because it's immediate. You know, if you don't know anything about anyone, you can see how they're speaking to you or how they're writing to you. You get one email from somebody, and that's all you have to go on them. It jumps out at you if they have a low level of language, or if you're speaking to somebody, the moment they open their mouth, how they speak, if they're very articulate, if they're very good communicator, that is immediately noticeable. So because of that, something you can do that really helps is to improve your written communication skills and your verbal communication skills in the language that you're going to be operating in. Okay. Someone says, I got a job after following this channel. Congratulations. Great. You did it yourself. It's like, I don't take any credit for it. It's you. You did it. Perhaps getting rejected because of idiotic criteria is even luck. working with people like that can be difficult in the future, I suppose. Yeah, it can be, definitely. I mean, sometimes you have a recruiter standing as a gatekeeper to a good job, and unfortunately you have to get past an idiot recruiter to get a good job. Sometimes. A lot of times that's not what we see. Usually, if the company hired an idiot as their recruiter, usually the company doesn't know what they're doing, and chances are it's not going to be a highly successful, valuable job behind the recruiter. But it takes all kinds. We see all kinds of things happening out there. Okay, but don't feel bad if you deal with an idiot recruiter that rejects you out of hand, or like they just can't. There's many qualified people that applied, and they just didn't get to you. Don't feel bad about it. It's nothing to do with you. It's to do with them. It's about factors outside of your control. You don't control the competition, and you don't control the criteria they use to judge people. That's not on you. That's them. And a lot of times people are looking for silly things. I mean, how many people have been rejected for a job, and later on you see who did get hired for that role, and you see them totally not work out and like leave the company or get fired or whatever, shortly thereafter. That happens a lot, right? Like, you weren't good enough. This person was. And as we can see, they failed spectacularly, right? It goes to show you how hard it is to spot talent. I mean, spotting talent is very hard. But then on top of that, if you put somebody that's totally not equipped to spot talent, who doesn't have any life experience, doesn't know the subject matter of the role that they're hiring for, it's even worse. The outcome is even worse, right? I just put outside the box thinker as a headline in my LinkedIn. Company's expert here teaching us all the backdoor stuff. Okay, well, hopefully you mean backdoor stuff in a good way. I'm sorry you may have already answered this, but just got on. When in an interview, what impresses the interviewers? Open personality? Once again, that's so general that it's almost unanswerable. Short answer is, if you're dealing with a recruiter, if they meet the posted criteria, you tell them you have all the posted criteria. Like you say each thing. You speak to each thing they've said in the job interview they're looking for. That's what they care about. In addition to that, soft skills, communication skills, having good communication skills, being professional, being polite, being personable, being approachable, friendly, have a smile. You see this? This is a smile, right? As opposed to talking to people like this, right? This might be how I talk to people like that, maybe your family or something like you're super comfortable with. But in professional situations, you've got to try and be artificially friendly and artificially approachable. Right? That's what impresses people. That's what people respond to. AK Naj 89 says, you do a wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm flattered that you guys are here, and I've gotten a lot of intelligent questions. Whoops. Well, there goes my notes. What little notes I had. Okay, a couple of things to do with this question that I didn't even get into yet. It's been like almost 2 hours. Why should we hire you? So don't say, what was it? Don't say like, well, why would I want to work here? Okay, that's a big no. That's what a lot of people say. It's sarcastic. Recruiters and the people who ask the question will not respond well to that. Okay. Don't say, I don't want to starve. Why should we hire you? Well, I don't want to starve. No. The question is not, why should you get a job? The question is, why should we hire you instead of somebody else? Instead of all the other people we're talking to. Right? It's not about you. It's about them. Why should they pick you? The question is not, why should you have a job? Okay. Yeah, so like these are kind of obvious sort of knee-jerk, like obvious reactions, as some people say. Don't give any of those. They will not be taken well. Oh, I can't even remember where I left off in this chat here. It just keeps scrolling by. If it's really important, put it in the super chat. I will prioritize those and make sure that everybody gets an answer there. Remember, the answer to this question, the way to lead off, the mnemonic, is to say, well, as I understand it, you're looking for someone who, and then you go down the requirements. As I understand it, you're looking for someone who has 5 years experience in this. I have 5 years experience. Who has this qualification. I have that. I got it with honors. Who has, this skill operating this machinery or doing this type of activity. I have that. Right? As I understand it, you're looking for someone who has all those things, right? That's why I want to work here. It seems like I'm a perfect fit. It seems like you're looking for exactly someone like me. Someone says, please make a video on the STAR method. I have a video on the STAR method. Go check it out. Just type in the company's expert, STAR, I guess, and hopefully it should come up. Mark Brown says something very nice. Thank you, Mark Brown. You're awesome. Take it from me. Okay, for us, if someone was too confident, we most likely chose other person who seemed more polite. Yeah, you see, there's a fine line in an interview between being confident, which if it goes too far can appear arrogant, right? So that on one side, and then being humble on the other, where it's great that you're humble, but you may not advertise your strengths as much as you should. And the person interviewing you leaves without really seeing that you have all those strengths, without that being communicated, right? So it's hard to find the fine line. You do want to talk up what you have, but you don't want to come across as arrogant about it. You're always open to learning. You don't know it all. You have a lot of stuff, but you don't have it all, right? Like, you don't want to say that, but that's kind of the attitude, the vibe you want to give, right? Okay, because it's bad having an employee, like speaking as a boss, it's bad having an employee that you can't tell them anything. They've got an answer for everything. They argue with you over everything, and they think they're smarter than you. Maybe they are smarter than you. Like if you have an employee that's brilliant, okay, maybe they are. But, that's a pain to deal with, right? It's like, look, I'm in charge. I'm responsible if things go wrong. I'm making a decision to do it this way, and hopefully I've consulted with you. I've asked your opinion, but at the end of the day, I've made a decision, I need you to do this. And I don't want to have an argument. I don't want to have to explain myself in great detail every time I give you an instruction. So it's a fear of hiring someone like that, right? The problem is that when we're young, we think we know it all. And I'm speaking from experience. When I was in my 20s, no one could tell me anything. I was a typical 20-year-old. We were going to take on the world, and you have unlimited energy and unlimited drive, and the world is your oyster, and it's great. It's great. Unfortunately, most people find that in their 30s that they didn't know it all, and they were wrong about some things. But that's okay. That's life, right? But if you're a 20-year-old and you've got a lot of energy, but nobody can tell you anything because you know better, that doesn't make for a great employee as far as the boss is concerned. That's the problem. So you have to be, you have certain things under your belt, but you can't be arrogant enough that, it's all about you. You're bragging and boasting, and, no one can tell you anything. So it's a very fine line. And the only real way to know where that is just to do a lot of interviews and get some experience. apply for a lot of jobs, look for a lot of jobs, do job interviews, do networking, try to get interviews on the hidden job market, and then do informational interviews. Do all these things. I guarantee you, I mean, it might be out of your comfort zone. It might be very nerve-wracking to think of this stuff, but it's actually like informational interviews and stuff and networking. It's actually a lot easier than you think. And if you do it the right way, it's actually a lot less stressful than you think it is, because these encounters go a lot better than you would think they would go if you do it right. And the stuff you learn will last you the rest of your career. It will help you, not just to get the next job, but throughout your life. There we go. I seem to have silenced the chat. It hasn't moved for a while. That's good in a way, I suppose. There are still 60 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me. Now, as a reminder, if you are interested in the business thing, some people are, some people aren't. But if you are, okay, not only am I having the next live stream I do on Wednesday will be about, not necessarily about how to get a job. That's not what we're going to be talking about. It's going to be about general business topics, how to grow companies, maybe corporate culture. I really don't know. This will be the first live stream on something other than how to get a job. So it'll be related to your career indirectly. Okay. So anyway, if you are interested in that, that's what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday. And if you want to go deeper, I have a course called the $100 MBA. There's a link in the description where you learn everything that you learn in an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration, which is the gold standard of knowing business. And you're using, if you take the course, you're using the same textbooks as they use in leading universities around the world in their MBA programs, in Harvard, in places like this. And you read the same books, and there's a couple of videos by me for each topic, but it's basically a self-study thing with no tests, no evaluations, no projects, no assignments. You do it entirely on your own terms. You can go as deep as you want, or you can just skim all the material if all you want is just kind of the gist of what they do, right? So I created this for people that want to learn business, but they really don't need they don't want to spend $10,000 and take 2 years of their lives to get like the full-blown degree, right? Where it's accredited and all that. This is just like $100. You learn the material. So if you have ambitions to be an entrepreneur, have a side hustle, anything like this, or advance your career, this is useful knowledge that will help you. Okay, and you do it, you study it entirely on your own terms. So if that's appealing to you, check out that course. And we're going to be talking about some of that stuff on Wednesday. At least that's my goal. I have no idea how many people will show up for that. I suspect it will be less than the people that show up for how to get a job, but it's an experiment. So there you go. Yeah, and I dropped my notes on the floor. Excuse me a sec. There we go. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I almost forgot. I want to thank a couple of my new members. I got 2 new members this week. So thank you very much to those people for joining. If you don't know, you can join my YouTube channel and you pay like a pits or whatever it is. And you get an extra video from me every week, members only video. So if that's any interest to you, you can check that out. And also I have a Patreon if anyone's interested. I have a few Patreons. We got some questions. Okay, you're doing a great job. Thank you. I don't regret this random recommendation by YouTube. Oh, well, good. You got a random recommendation by YouTube. That's good. I kind of had a feeling that YouTube was starting to start to show me the cold shoulder there. So that's great. That's great. I've got a series of videos on all the standard job interview questions. They're all in a playlist. The playlist is called Get Hired. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see that playlist and check those out. Those are my most popular videos. Excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to be wrapping this up pretty soon. If anyone has any last questions, now's the chance. Because in about 5 minutes, I'm going to be signing off. It's been nearly 2 hours, but I want to thank everyone for being here. So, just to sum up, why should we hire you? Great question to be asked. It's very similar to what are your strengths? This is your moment to shine. This is where you give your sales pitch. What do I mean by sales pitch? It's by saying the things that you have, the things that you know, the things that you've done, the reasons to hire you. And the things you should choose to say here are things that you have that line up with what they've said they're looking for in candidates. It's printed in the job posting. It's printed under requirements. They'll say, like, we want someone with this, right? So a great thing to do is to go down that list of requirements. Now, if you don't have this memorized in a job interview, the other thing I recommend is when you go to a job interview, you're going to be bringing some stuff with you, right? Now, I still actually recommend bringing paper, okay? Like if you got a tablet or whatever, that's fine. But, paper is not passé. It's not outdated, not in the world of business, okay? Certainly. I agree that maybe it should be, but it still isn't, okay? So if you've printed out the job description, if you kind of just have that on the table in front of you, okay, just to kind of jog your memory, they were looking for this, right? Now, you don't want to be staring down the entire time and reading off the page, but, if you just kind of glance, oh yeah, this. So you mention all of the major points, right? That's perfectly fine. That's not going to be a problem, okay? I wouldn't keep your cell phone on the table if there's a table, like in a job interview. Don't keep your cell phone on the table. There's a bunch of red flags when you do that, like you're waiting for a call or you're timing yourself or you're recording them, right? So don't do that, but you can put some papers on the counter. And if you have the job description and maybe you highlighted each of the requirements, just like one word, so you can just quickly glance and then talk to them about it, right? That's a great thing. Okay, it's a great way to do this without memorizing the entire job posting, so you know what to say, you know which points to speak to. Mark Brown says, "I'm almost 50, interviewing for a product manager role, also setting up my own business." Great. It sounds like if you are inclined, you might want to check out the larger business topics. If you have any questions, you could ask those on Wednesday if you're free. You are really helping me. Well, good. I'm glad it's at least somewhat useful. Okay, so for executive personal assistants or office managers, which one is more important, the diploma or the experience? Well, as a general rule, it varies considerably, but generally speaking, for that type role, it'll be experience, okay? It may be sort of like a requirement. You must have this educational qualification. If you don't have that, they won't even consider you, okay? So you have to have the educational component to even be considered, right? Having said that, then it's all based on your experience, and they're going to really take a good look at your experience because, especially in a role where you have to it's based on how you behave. It's based on your presentation, your professionalism, and how you behave, knowing what's appropriate to do, what's not appropriate to do, right? So that's where experience really comes in, okay? Now, once again, experience in itself doesn't necessarily mean that you're good or bad. It's just that in theory, it reduces the risk, okay? So for something like that, they're going to, number one, if there's an educational qualification, you probably just need that to even be considered for an interview. Then, if they're deciding who to bring in for an interview, if you don't have any experience, that might rule you out of getting an interview, okay? And if you do have some experience, you go to the interview, and their assessment of you as a person is probably going to be the most important thing at the end of the day. That's probably going to be the deciding criteria. Okay? So what may also be very useful there is, I mean, this is not always possible for everyone, but if you have the ability to have some glowing letters of recommendation or really good references from people that they might be familiar with, that can really help. Okay? If you're an executive assistant, so you're dealing with an executive, and you use the executive as a reference, that may hold a lot of water, because if you say like, look, your number one competitor, I was the executive to their chief financial officer, like that will carry a lot of weight. They know who that person is, and they know that they're big leagues. And so if you were in their employ for like 4 years as their executive assistant, that's going to say a lot in your favor. Okay. So it's also going to come down to stuff like that. Now, I don't think that's more important than them liking you. Like the most powerful thing will be how you are as a person, I would imagine. Okay. So I don't care who you've worked for. If you're just off-putting and rude and arrogant, it can't compensate for that, right? At least that's kind of my take on it. Are you planning on organizing live conferences? No, not really. Just doing a live stream. I've been to conferences. I never organized a live conference. That's probably a bit beyond my technology setup here. I'm doing this on a computer that's like 12 years old that I built myself. But the fact that it's 12 years old and it can handle all this stuff, to me, is really cool. Not to anyone else, but so streaming multiple feeds from multiple locations and all this, unless you're like just doing a Zoom call or something, is kind of beyond my capabilities. In person. No, I haven't done any public speaking since before the events of 2020. I haven't gotten back into that. I'm a bit out of practice too. I probably should. Someone says, I like your shirt. Yes, this is something we don't talk about. Look, if you have ambitions to be like a manager or something, part of it is the presentation. Okay, like that's a part. If you show up to a job interview in sweatpants and like a white vest, like with food stains down it, and if you're a guy, you have like a beard down to here, that's not going to count in your favor. You look like you're not the person. So you're going to have to work to change people's minds. That's very hard. If you walk into the place and you look like the person, all you have to do is not talk yourself out of a job, right? It's a lot easier, okay? So if you're trying to get a higher position, presentation is a part of it. So, if you need to get different clothes or do different grooming type things, that does matter to a degree. For higher level positions, you are going to be representing the organization. You are going to be talking to the public. You're going to be talking to customers. You're going to be talking to suppliers, talking to all kinds of stakeholders, okay, on behalf of the company. So if you look like, unprofessional in some way, or you don't look like the image they want to project, that's going to be a considerable drawback for you. It has nothing to do with your personal appearance. It's to do with how you dress up and how you style and groom yourself, right? So that's the one reason why you don't see me on here with like a huge handlebar mustache, right? Nothing against it, but for certain positions, it's like that just doesn't fly. So when we're in our 20s, we don't understand that for a start, and we resist it as much as we can, for a finish. But when you get a bit older, you realize these things, right? So yeah, like go to if you can, like go and look at the people, like how they dress, how they look, and maybe take that as a blueprint for if you want to be considered for those roles. That's kind of what they're expecting, right? So if you could do your best to look the part, that helps. What a helpful channel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, listen, it's been great. Thank you all for showing up. There's still 48 of you here. I can't believe it after 2 hours. That's awesome. Thank you for some very nice things you guys have said, some very intelligent questions. This live stream will be up for today and maybe into tomorrow a little bit, but it'll make its way over to my second YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2. If you don't know about that, subscribe, check it out. That's where I archive all these live streams. And and then I'll be back on Wednesday with another live stream about business in general. So if that's any interest to you, come join me for that. I have absolutely no idea how it's going to go. It could be a total disaster, or it could, it could be a fabulous success, but it's probably going to be more of a disaster than a success. But come and see it anyway, and be a part of that disaster with me, and then we can all feel good together and have something in common. And and other than that, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I just want to end by saying what I say at the beginning. If you're looking for a job right now, if you feel you have a lack of self-esteem, if you feel very, very vulnerable, you're dealing with some nasty people that are rude, that don't make you feel good. Number one, you are not alone. Number two, you are a lot more valuable, capable, and hireable than you feel right now, okay? It's just a matter of going through this dog and pony show until you get hired, and then your value is revealed not only to you, but to everyone else, okay? It was always there, right? It just, now you feel it more, okay? So never stop rehearsing, preparing, researching, okay? Listen to my channel, my videos. Go look at other sources too, okay? Get a variety of sources where you get your information from. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much, and I will see you in a couple of days. Take care.